The fourth city within Dom's territory, known as Giant Crocodile City, was originally the city of slaves. But once Lava Dragon led his troops to seize control, he renamed it with a much cooler and more intimidating title. Despite the name, there was nothing remotely crocodile-like about its architecture. After the arrival of the mutant beasts and Lava Dragon, the city had been repurposed as a hub where human scientists built instant teleportation gates. Their mission was to set up a network of portals to improve troop transportation under orders from the big boss. Now there was someone whose footsteps thundered daily through the underground tunnels, so frequently that the scientists had long grown accustomed to it. That someone was Lava Dragon himself. This place was his territory now, and he was constantly dropping by to check on progress. The moment he entered, he asked the project lead, "How far along is the wormhole construction?" A bald man stepped forward to report. "With the current equipment, we can only build a portal of this size. If you want one large enough to pass through yourself, well, optimistically, it'll take another 4 months." Lava Dragon nodded deeply upon hearing this. "Then I leave it in your hands. Do your best." Despite his rough and imposing appearance, he was surprisingly considerate, a leader with real administrative experience. Among the 10 great beasts of Misty Mountain, Lava Dragon had been the first to be entrusted with managing his own region by the willow tree. His tone was so courteous and composed that the bald man was left gaping, nearly forgetting to respond. "Ah, yes! Yes, of course!" With that, Lava Dragon spread his wings and took off. Watching his retreating figure, the bald man couldn't help but muse. This was clearly a crocodile that had evolved into a dragon, yet why did speaking with him feel like talking to a human? Could it be that a human soul was trapped inside? In the fifth city, now under Earth Force's control, a massive construction site roared with the grinding of high-powered drills. Before them stood a towering jet-black cliff, polished like metal. The construction workers had spent hours trying to break through it, but no matter what tools they used, they couldn't make a dent. "Maybe we should consider taking a detour," someone muttered. From behind, a bold voice rang out. "Leave it to me." A foot slightly smaller than an adult human's stomped the ground with confidence. It was Flash. Harnessing her power boost, multiplying her strength 5-fold, Flash extended her razor-sharp blades and aimed precisely at a weak spot in the massive metal wall, then struck. A deafening crack echoed through the air. The impact sent tremors through the entire mountain, causing a rock slide from above. Boulders the size of cranes came crashing down, forcing the workers below to scatter in panic. Shouts of alarm were soon drowned out by the thunderous sound of falling rocks. A single hit from one of those boulders would flatten a person in an instant. Just as hopelessness set in, and one worker braced for his end, regretting that he hadn't eaten his mother's dinner the night before, Bull Demon arrived out of nowhere. "Anti-gravity!" he roared, but the terrified worker was too panicked to hear. The next moment, everything that had been falling suddenly reversed direction, floating weightlessly in the air. The only thing left was stunned silence and astonished exclamations. "Whoa! Whoa! We're floating! This is amazing!" Thanks to Bull Demon's timely arrival, the casualties were limited to the crushed machinery. Every person made it out just in time. But the second bro was furious at his younger sister for relying solely on brute strength. He took the chance to land a skull-cracking bonk on Flash's head. "You idiot! You almost got them killed!" For once, Flash didn't dare protest. In the sixth city, the workers weren't focusing on their tasks. Instead, they were craning their necks, intently watching something. Turns out, it was a man skillfully manipulating piles of sand. Ching Xiao was shaping layers of earth and stone, gradually forming a towering structure with a massive clay statue of himself perched on the rooftop. And one had to admit, Ching Xiao's mastery over earth manipulation, along with his sense of aesthetics, had improved tremendously. Those thick lips stretched into a satisfied grin. Perfect. Perfect. That wasn't enough. Construction workers swarmed around him, eagerly shoving business cards into Ching Xiao's hands, practically tripping over themselves to recruit him. "Come work for our company, man. We'll give you top-tier benefits. We even cover insurance in case you fall to your death." Leng Yu, watching the commotion, saw it as nothing different from a celebrity being swarmed by fans. She gushed, "Brother Ching Xiao is amazing. So honest, so caring, and he can even cook well. He's a great partner for marriage." She didn't care about her brother, who instantly flared up at the sound of his little sister praising another guy. For Big Bird and his squadron, every city looked the same. Their job was simple: patrol the skies of their master's new territory and make sure no shady intruders snuck in. On the ground, a pack of mutated tempest wolves raced ahead, growling as they ran. These wolves were elite scouts, swift, efficient, and had saved their comrades from countless dangers before. As they neared the border of the territory, something felt off. It's a strange aura. Not only that, a surge of high-level energy was getting closer. A few moments later, the wolves lifted their heads just in time to see two brilliant streaks of violet light slicing through the sky. One of them shot straight forward, rigid and precise. The other weaved and swerved, gliding smoothly, but both of them crashed into the side of a cliff. The smoke obscured everything. Then, as it settled, two figures emerged, both cloaked in black. One was huge, towering over the other, who was closer to human-sized. Both of them had snuck into enemy territory, eager to grab a little fun before the real war started. The big one grumbled irritably, couldn't they make the teleportation field any bigger? What kind of crappy portal is this? Without even looking at him, the smaller one shot back, you're just too damn big. Their original plan was to visit the territories governed by the 10 great beasts and stir up some chaos, but the teleportation array hadn't quite dropped them in the right place. There was nothing here. This is the right location. It's just a little off, said Sigma. Slave City is right ahead, or rather, it was now called Giant Crocodile City. And if they kept heading in that direction, they just might run straight into Lava Dragon, potentially making him the first great beast they challenged. But there was no rush. They had all the time in the world, so they took their time walking. Unbeknownst to them, however, besides the mutated Tempest Wolves patrolling the area, there was already someone else who had caught their scent. Golden Monkey sat curled up on a tree branch, gripping his familiar staff. No one knew how long he had been there, nor how long it had been since he last spoke to anyone, until a surge of spiritual energy swept through the air, startling him. His eyes snapped open, and he turned sharply, standing up straight in full alertness. His fingers tightened around the staff. Must be an intruder. His veins pulsed as his grip tightened, and in a flash, Golden Monkey leaped from the branch, rushing toward the disturbance. Dragon Island, usually peaceful, was now stirring with unseen forces. Spiritual energy mixed with the faint scent of killing intent carried on the wind. A heavy elephant's foot lost balance and collapsed onto the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. No one expected it to be Glacier. I had to look twice, no, 3 times, before I was sure it was him. The 8th brother of Misty Mountain, not some young and reckless elephant who had taken a beating. His entire body was battered. One of his tusks had broken clean off, while the other was deeply cracked. His opponent, Golden Dragon, was still standing tall. The dragon roared in mockery, "Too weak! You're far too weak, and they dare count you among the 10 great beasts?" Glacier was still conscious, but his eyes were dull, as if he refused to listen. It was unclear whether the mammoth was even fully aware anymore. There was no response from him at all. A powerfully built wolf, one who had once competed in Misty Mountain's Dark Fruit Tournament, jumped down into the pit without invitation, growling straight at Golden Dragon. "Next, it's my turn." Without waiting for a reply, he launched a merciless punch straight to the dragon's face. From an outside view, it looked like Golden Dragon's forehead had caved in slightly, his eyes squeezing shut from the impact. But rather than cooling his temper, the blow only added fuel to the fire. "Ha! Not bad," the dragon admitted, but Iron Fang Wolf wasn't interested in compliments. "Who are you calling not bad? I'm the king of land battle." The battle's intensity turned Dragon Isle into a boiling pot of excitement. More and more beasts gathered, eager to see who would come out on top. In the midst of all the chaos, no one spared a glance at Glacier's lonely silhouette as he walked away from the battlefield. He moved so quietly, one might have mistaken him for a crane instead of a mammoth. Even the mutated Tempest Wolves, who were closely connected to the 10 great beasts, paid him no mind, too engrossed in the spectacle before them. Only one figure stood on a distant stone pillar, its 4 tails swaying gently in the wind. Big Sis had seen it all, had evaluated everything, but she said nothing. The peregrine falcon flock spread their wings wide, slicing through the sky at blistering speeds. Just a quick reminder for all you bird lovers, this scout species can reach flight speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour. If they were circling Dom's territory, they'd be making laps in no time with the wind howling past their eyes, yet they wouldn't even blink. Big Bird's sharp gaze scanned every inch of the terrain below, meticulously sweeping over all objects in sight. They are not at an area that typically devoid of beasts, with no creatures frequenting or settling there. Because of this, the 2 alien beings had traveled a great distance without encountering a single soul. Not even the chirp of a bird could be heard. The burly one, trudging along, couldn't keep his mouth shut. Every few steps he whined, "How much farther? This is so boring." Sigma grumbled, but it was nothing new. He was already too familiar with his companion's constant whining. Suddenly he halted, eyes fixed straight ahead, letting out a casual as if he had seen it coming. This was the territory of the mutant tree. It was only natural for its subordinates to appear first. Leading the wolf pack was a large wolf with an X marked on its forehead. It caught the scent of danger, mixed with an aura of high-level spiritual energy emanating from the stranger. Rather than asking why he was here, it chose to bare its fangs, snarl menacingly, and spray saliva everywhere. "Stop! You will not take another step." Sigma, seeing this, was anything but intimidated. Instead, he threw his head back and burst into laughter. "Ha! Finally, something interesting." He had been looking for some entertainment for the burly companion beside him, and before they even reached the slave city, a fight was already brewing. Were they planning to brawl their way from the border straight to the heart of the city? That day, under the gloomy skies, the city remained eerily silent. Everyone was busy with their own tasks, even the lava dragon. The beast's powerful legs carried it nimbly between the rows of buildings before it stopped dead in its tracks. He lifted its head, gazing toward the border with wary eyes. A strange and immensely powerful spiritual force had appeared. More alarmingly, Lava Dragon had received no warning from the scout unit. They should have detected this presence long before the dragon did. Apologies to Brother 4, but the mutated Tempest Wolves had been working diligently, except now their throats were clenched shut, hoisted high in the air, unable to make a single sound. Wounds covered its body, its life force fading fast. To Sigma, it was nothing more than a pitiful sight. Losing patience, he gave the order. "Finish it off already. We still have a long way to go." Toying with it had been a decent distraction, but wasting half a day on this wolf? That was just annoying. Out of nowhere, an unfamiliar surge of spiritual energy whooshed in like a gale. The burly one failed to react in time. Something shot down from the sky, forcing him to release his grip on the wounded wolf. He hadn't expected an enemy this fast. The undisputed king of the skies. With a full wingspan of 2 meters, its feathers were both dense and silky, forming the perfect wings of a formidable predator, the peregrine falcon. Big Bird grasped Elang firmly in its talons, while its comrades glared at the enemy, their sharp eyes full of unspoken menace. Well, a high-speed bird species? Sigma mused. No wonder the others couldn't react in time. A new species, huh? Might as well roast one and see how it tastes. His aggressive companion lunged forward, killing intent radiating from his very being. They might specialize in reconnaissance, but the peregrine falcons had fought in countless blood-soaked battles. Big Bird let out a piercing screech, and in an instant, 2 of its subordinates plunged toward the mutants like meteors. The sheer friction against the air ignited flames around their bodies. These falcons were the very first creatures Yu had tamed, back when he could barely move beyond Inglevine. Over time, their speed had surpassed the sound barrier. Now, they could fly beyond 15 Mach, the fastest airborne creatures in the Misty Mountain Range, and perhaps even the most formidable in Azure Star. Yet, Sigma's gaze remained indifferent, as if speed meant nothing to him. He didn't even bother to act. A purple blur shot forward at an astonishing speed. Before the falcon could land its attack, Sigma's companion swung his weapon, slicing clean through the creature's body. No one could tell what kind of weapon he had used, but with the Ingle strike, he had executed a flawless kill. Blood splattered as feathers scattered through the air. The mutant's gaze never left the enemy. The second peregrine falcon hurled itself toward the mutant, ready for another clash. From the outside, it looked as if the attack had landed squarely on the mutant's head, shattering the ground beneath him. But something felt off to the falcon. There was no sign of pain from its opponent. Instead, the cloak suddenly billowed upwards. In the blink of an eye, the bird's throat was seized so fast that even it hadn't realized what had happened. By the time it did, its neck was already in the enemy's grasp, fingers tightening lower to prevent any movement. The mutant lifted the falcon high, ignoring its frantic struggles, sneering, "Trying to ambush me, huh?" With his free hand, he grabbed the bird's neck and squeezed, hoisting it even higher. Its bones cracked audibly, yet it was still clinging to life. His grip was like that of an anaconda crushing its prey, savoring the torment. The peregrine falcon's agony was unbearable. Its eyes rolled back, bloodshot, bulging as if they would burst from their sockets. It let out piercing, desperate cries, signaling its leader to escape. But the intruder understood none of it. He only heard the incessant screeching and snapped, "How noisy!" Big Bird wasted no time. Even as his vision blurred with tears, he flapped his wings with all his might, clutching Elang tightly and fleeing the battlefield. He had to return to the crocodile's territory. He had to report this to the mutant tree, This grudge would not go unanswered. But the mutated Tempest Wolf was too heavy. Its weight slowed Big Bird down by nearly a third, turning him into an easy target. Sigma extended his palm, a sphere of spiritual energy forming in his grasp. "Trying to run? Dream on," he roared, hurling the sphere with pinpoint accuracy. Even to the naked eye, it was clear the attack would hit its mark. Big Bird glanced back in distress, pushing his speed to the limit, but it was no use. The gap was closing fast. His chances of survival were dwindling, yet he refused to let go of Alang. He would not abandon him. They would live or die together. An explosion erupted midair. Smoke and wind blasted outward in all directions. "Oh?" The burly mutant tilted his head, his voice laced with excitement as it found something truly entertaining. A new beast had appeared, intercepting his attack. A white ape? The white of its fur was distinct, standing out even against the drifting smoke. It had clearly come to rescue the peregrine falcon and block the enemy so Big Bird could escape with Alang. Sigma warned his companion, "That beast's energy is no joke. Stay sharp." But caution was not exactly his companion's strong suit. More brawn than brains, the brute simply grinned, thrilled by the arrival of a new challenger. "Finally, a real fight," he laughed. Before he could finish, the white ape landed, stomping down so hard the ground seemed to flip. Standing less than 2 meters from the mutants, its stance was unmistakably aggressive. The hulking mutant reacted instantly, summoning a golden heart-shaped energy mass and firing it toward the ape. The ground split open, forming a river of golden light. Mountains shifted in the shockwave, spiritual energy crashing into the rocks like waves against a cliff. Only after the attack settled did Sigma snap. "What the hell are you doing?" He hadn't expected his companion to strike so recklessly, obscuring their entire field of vision. But strangely enough, before they could locate their opponent, wham! A streak of white fur burst out from the smoke, a thick tail swinging like a war club straight into Sigma's face. Another earth-shattering explosion rang out. Their fighting style was clear. No rapid exchanges, just devastating blows, one after another, testing which side could stir up more destruction before pressing on. Or perhaps the white ape was simply gauging its enemy's strength. The mutants were fast, slipping from the smoke right under the ape's watchful eyes. But as one of them revealed his grotesque face, as if trying to scare a child, the white ape trembled in fear and responded with a brutal kick straight to the throat. Its opponent was in half from the impact, sent rocketing into the sky like a missile blasting off. Down below, the ape clenched his fists, watching closely. Though the strike had landed perfectly, there was no look of satisfaction on his face. A few seconds of silence. Then, "Ha! This place is way more fun than I expected." Laughter echoed from above. "Smelly gorilla, you're mine." The white ape narrowed his eyes dangerously. Gorilla what? For anyone now sure about this creature, this was the golden monkey turned into white ape form under the power of the leader's stone it once received. Obviously, there was no gorillas here. He stared at the crazy creature, announcing, "I'm gonna pluck every last hair off your body." The enemy stood tall, his ragged cloak falling apart, revealing his patchy, blotched skin beneath. His mask had been torn away, exposing a massive, unblinking eye staring down at him. The mutant was already massive, but now, as he crashed down to face the White Ape King, the ground trembled beneath his weight, an added display of dominance. There was a reason these creatures wore cloaks and hid their faces. More than anything, it was because of those enormous, unblinking eyes that stared straight through people, sending chills down their spines. His muscular arms glowed with patches of spiritual energy as he sneered arrogantly. "Come on, keep going." Just moments ago, the white ape had been nearly his size. Now, he barely reached half the mutant's shin. The challenge left his lips, and in the same breath, he launched a full-force punch straight at the ape's face. The white ape gritted his teeth in pain as blood sprayed in the opposite direction of the impact. His body sent flying, crashing into the rocky ground with an earth-shaking boom. The fight had barely begun, yet he was already battered and bruised. His body was scraped raw, his limbs weak. Whatever power the mutant had infused into his body, it was terrifyingly potent. Seizing the moment, the hulking brute charged forward with shocking speed, his enormous body moving with unsettling agility. The white ape had barely begun to rise when the mutant spread his fingers wide, transforming his arm into a deadly array of spikes, aiming to skewer his prey. A dull thud echoed as the white ape's body absorbed the strike before slumping under the force of the devastating blow. On pressed down harder, attempting to pin the ape into the earth itself, but the ground gave way under the pressure, fracturing into deep concentric cracks as both combatants plunged 2 meters below. At that moment, the white ape countered. With a powerful upward kick, he slammed his foot into Un's jaw, forcing his opponent's grip to loosen, even if just for a second. The brute remained standing, but that brief moment of release was all the white ape needed to leap backward, putting distance between them. Though his movements were still quick, it was obvious his stamina was dwindling. Blood seeped continuously from his wounds, his body riddled with punctures. Now panting heavily, his breath ragged, only the fire in his eyes remained undiminished. That unwavering defiance ignited a rage in Un. With a powerful push from his legs, he lunged, closing the gap in an instant, throwing a punch meant to twist the ape's very frame upon impact. Too fast. The white ape failed to dodge. The mutant grinned as his fist landed, savoring the hit. Sigma had been nagging about caution, but seriously, was this really the level of strength expected from a rank 4 transcendent? Please, give him something worth his time. The white ape clenched his teeth. Instead of retaliating with his fists, he rammed his forehead straight into N's skull. Bang! The mutant's head was larger, but that didn't mean it was tougher. The white ape's headbutt landed with crushing force, and before the brute could react, his mouth opened wide. A blinding pillar of spiritual energy erupted from his throat, slamming into N's grotesque face, forcing him back. It wasn't enough to send him flying, but the flames mixed within the energy clung to his skin, gnawing away at his thick, blackened flesh. So hot! So hot! N groaned, scrambling to extinguish the fire. Luckily for him, the white ape was utterly drained. His attack had reached its limit, and the flames only managed to cling to his opponent's face. One knee hit the ground, his body heaving for breath. Compared to his own injuries, just managing to summon that fire had already taken everything out of him. Scattered embers flickered through the air like dying hopes. He hadn't even begun to recover when the mutant's mocking voice rang out. "That's not even enough to get me warmed up. You can't beat me like this. Get up and keep going." He wanted to, but the white ape wasn't reckless. No matter how much the taunt stung, charging headfirst now would be nothing short of throwing himself into a meat grinder. And there were still 2 of them. Even if he managed to take one down, the other would kill him without a second thought. Sigma finally stepped forward, grumbling irritably. "Stop playing around. Just finish it already. The white ape isn't part of the target." He was about to remind his companion that their goal was the 10 great beasts, but An didn't care. "Doesn't matter. We have just to kill them all." Hearing them bicker like this, the white ape understood. These monsters would keep advancing deeper into their lands, killing everything in sight. His gaze drifted to the ring on his middle finger, faintly glowing with a soft, calming light. Wear this spirit ring. It will help you remain calm, keep your mind steady. More importantly, it will stop you from losing control. But what would happen if he did lose control? The white ape no longer cared to know. What use was control if he wouldn't survive? With a decisive clench of his fist, the ring shattered. A column of spiritual energy erupted around him, swallowing his entire form. Unlike before, this surge dwarfed the previous attack, its energy dense and wild, untamed fury coursing through the air. The mutant's eyes widened. He had assumed the ape was on his last breath. He hadn't expected him to still have this much strength left. More importantly, his spiritual energy had changed. The white ape, like a beast unchained, roared as it lunged at its opponent with razor-sharp fangs. If it managed to ink its teeth into flesh, there was no way it would let go. But before that, it had to land a solid punch to the mutant's midsection, just to shut that thing up a bit. With its spiritual energy surging, both its speed and strength skyrocketed, and never saw it coming. Its eyes widened as it took the blow straight to its body. The impact sent it flying, tearing through the ground for over 100 meters before finally coming to a halt. But it wasn't because of the white ape's strength. It stopped only because the mutant allowed it. At first, it looked a bit surprised, but the difference in power remained. The white ape knew it too, yet it showed no fear. Its gaze was as resolute as ever, and hated that look. It had no mouth, yet it loved taunting its prey. "That's all you've got? You think you can push me back with just that? Is that all you can do with your full strength?" Grrr. The white ape seethed with rage. It braced itself, then unleashed a flurry of 10 blazing punches straight into the mutant, pouring all its fury into the attacks. Its fists moved so fast they became a blur, the force behind them terrifying. But N barely felt a thing. Amid the sparks flying from the blows, he emerged, grinning. "Attacks like that only make me feel bored." It straightened up and swung its right arm with precision, smashing its fist directly into the white ape's face. The force sent the ape hurtling backward, crashing into a small mountain and shattering it into pieces. That blow wasn't even at full strength. It wanted to toy with its prey a bit more. By holding back, it didn't just injure the white ape, it only fueled its fighting spirit even further. The ape let out a savage roar, leaping out from the rubble, its posture brimming with raw power. Its spiritual energy flared up again, stronger than before. Was it getting tougher every time it took a hit? En frowned. Something wasn't right here. Was beating this thing up just making it angrier? Sigma had been watching the fight from a distance, his voice laced with mild surprise. Its spiritual energy is rising again. The larger mutant, intrigued by the relentless white ape, finally took an interest. If that's the case, then I shall display a little bit of my true strength for you to experience it. And bent its knee, pressing its left hand against the right knee, and from there, an eerie energy began to surge. The white ape didn't care. It charged forward like a flaming missile. Its entire body blazed, the heat intensifying as it neared its target. The friction grew so intense that, in an instant, it soared upward, dragging the sky itself into its wake, igniting everything around it in a radiant glow. Ha! Ha! The mutant laughed. Power gathered in its hand, crackling like a storm about to burst. The two forces collided with an earth-shattering impact, fire and lightning exploding skyward, their clash sending shockwaves that ripped through the battlefield. The force was so strong that even Sigma's cloak billowed violently behind him. Though he hadn't joined the fight, Sigma never took his eyes off the battle, closely observing both sides. He remained still as a statue, unfazed even as his comrade's aura remained intact. The dust settled, revealing a towering, blackened figure. Through the tattered cloak, a massive, emotionless eye peered out. The mutant scanned its surroundings, then looked down at its blood-stained hand. That last hit wasn't bad, was it? At first, it seemed like it was talking to itself. But no, it wasn't speaking to its own hand. It was boasting. The white ape was nowhere to be seen. Instead, just a short distance from the mutant's feet, there lay a massive, bottomless pit, so dark that nothing could be seen inside. What a shame. You didn't even get to hear my praise. Sin's gaze lingered on the pit, confident that its opponent had been buried within. Its voice dripped with false regret. Not that it matters. Weaklings like you deserve nothing but death. Just to be sure, the mutant leaned forward, peering into the pit to check if the white ape was truly dead. Amid the overturned rubble, a patch of white fur stood out faintly. Less than 10 meters above the ground, the ape lay motionless, its body covered in blood, but its faint, labored breaths proved it was still alive. That tiny remaining trace of life couldn't be left unchecked, and immediately conjured an energy sphere above the pit. One more drop, and the ape would be finished for good. So this is all the strength you had in the end? Just then, as if the protagonist had been saved in the nick of time, a golden pillar of light descended. At first glance, it seemed small, but as it approached, it expanded into a colossal beam, enveloping both mutants' heads like a star crashing down on them. The bulging-eyed mutant barely had time to let out a confused grunt before the dazzling radiance engulfed it. Where had this even come from? It couldn't react in time, let alone block it. The pillar struck with a thunderous crash, scattering debris in all directions. The familiar wings only arrived afterward, just now making it to the scene. As soon as it arrived, a pair of glowing eyes set deep in rough, scaly skin narrowed, scanning the situation. With its massive body, guerrilla tactics were never an option. It could only face its foes head-on. This was none other than the fourth brother, Lava Dragon. The moment it landed, it loomed over the mutants like a living mountain, its sheer size utterly dwarfing them. It had only just finished dealing with some construction work when it caught the scent of something strange and flew over. Upon arrival, it saw the mutant pummeling its younger brother into the dirt, an infuriating sight. Its two eyes glowed fiercely as they locked onto the enemy. The mutant stared back at the lava dragon, recognizing its name and sensing its overwhelming power. Supernatural rank 4, on the verge of rank 5. But instead of fear, Sigma grinned like a child spotting candy. He had always pursued a Ingle goal, facing the 10 great beasts. Seeing one right in front of him now filled him with pure excitement. On beside him, the one lacking proper facial features, said nothing, merely fixing its one massive eye on the lava dragon. It simply stood tall, its powerful aura radiating outward, a silent warning to its foes. Know your place and back off. Sigma muttered under his breath. Crocodile head, dragon wings, serpent body. Yeah, that's the one, the target. As composed as ever, the fourth brother wasn't in a rush. Before launching into battle, he wanted a quick word. Are you subordinates of the ancient tree of life? That simple question made One Eye burst into laughter. Ha! Subordinates? That sounds so degrading. We're colleagues. Then, with a sneer, it added, you insignificant supernatural rank 4 creatures, you think you're worthy of knowing such things. Before watching the battle unfold, let's take a look at Dom's old territorial map. If anyone heard the commotion, who would be the first to arrive? Second was Bull Demon, third was White Tiger, and fourth was Lava Dragon. These three brothers' territories were arranged from left to right. Slightly above them, on the right corner, was the fifth, Flash, and the largest region below belonged to the Freedom Federation, guarded by Yule. Thanks to the rapid installation at the center, Yule's side was the first to detect two unusual energy fluctuations appearing in the fourth city. Upon hearing his staff report that two super beings of rank 5 had shown up, Yule's eyes squinted behind the layers of ice covering his face. Two rank 5 super beings appearing at the same time. He didn't care who they were, didn't even bother sending scouts. Without hesitation, Yule issued an order: open the wormhole and prepare for support. But who would have thought the enemy forces would strike at this very moment? The space battleship was still refueling and wouldn't be ready for at least another 3 hours. The other warships were engaged in battles against the magic beasts and couldn't be mobilized. So, despite having everything, manpower, resources, and an early warning, Freedom Federation could do nothing but relay the news to the nearest town for assistance. The third city of White Tiger, right next to City 4, never cared much about city management. The moment it caught wind of trouble, it bolted straight to City 4. On its back was Xiao Lan, running alongside its Tiger Clan subordinates, a few representatives from the Spider and Rat houses, all of them dashing at full speed. No one ever doubted Brother Four's abilities, but he was only preparing to reach rank 5, still a gap away from matching his opponents in strength. That made Xiao Lan extremely anxious. To make things worse, there were two enemies. Her heart burned with urgency. She had to get there in time. While they were racing down the road, the border of City 4's territory was already in chaos, the battle shaking the ground. From above, dazzling blue slashes rained down in rapid succession. The moment it landed on the dragon's wing, it pierced straight through. Blood splattered everywhere in an instant. Lava Dragon immediately spread its wings, revealing its crocodile-like mouth full of sharp teeth, ready to confront the mutant as he flew in. Its wings weren't exactly made for defense, but taking a bit of damage to lure the enemy in closer was one of Lava Dragon's most effective tricks. The moment its opponent got close enough, it clamped down with its massive jaws, locking its prey firmly between its teeth. With a powerful bite, it crushed down hard. Lava Dragon's teeth were perfectly aligned, not a ingle one chipped to create a gap. Yet, strangely, In seemed boneless. Its head popped out with a grin, laughing. "Not bad, your bite packs a punch. Guess I'll be taking your skull." Lava Dragon's eyes widened. Had it ever failed to finish off a living target once it was in its jaws? The gap in strength was turning out to be full of surprises. Suddenly, a surge of energy burst beneath its fangs. Its crocodile eyes bulged as its entire body was sent flying backward. But where was its head? Don't tell me that was a one-shot kill. Its massive body lost balance, tumbling backward with a thunderous crash, sending waves splashing high into the air. Meanwhile, the mutant hovered effortlessly in the sky, casually summoning a dozen energy spheres around. After a quick aim, he let them all drop at once, raining down on Lava Dragon's fallen body, delivering another set of devastating blows. That was just how he fought. Take out the head first, then obliterate everything else afterward. He smirked with contempt. Dom lost to this piece of trash? Useless. And yet the news on our side says Lava Dragon was the one who took Dom down? What a joke. Hearing that made Lava Dragon furious. With a deafening roar, it burst out of the smoke, completely intact, head and all. Not a ingle patch of skin missing. The only thing it lost was a tooth. As it let out an enraged bellow, the dislodged tooth spun through the air before stabbing straight into the ground, not far from Sigma. Sigma didn't even flinch, merely glancing at the giant tooth before commenting dryly, "Didn't expect its teeth to be taller than me." Managing to knock out one of Lava Dragon's fangs was proof that N's skills weren't ordinary. But from the perspective of the others, the fact that it had taken multiple consecutive hits from a rank 5 and only lost to Ingle Tooth, well, that was equally impressive. A fight to the death. What's so fun about that? Lava Dragon growled in frustration. Who the hell are you people? It had heard them mock Dom so openly. There was no way they were gods under the Tree of Life's rule. Sigma, the more careful of the two, figured there was no harm in sharing a little information. Out of nowhere, a grotesque creature emerged. It was a massive, jagged-toothed worm, lacking eyes or a mouth. Even more horrifying, it came slithering right out of Sigma's face. His body was small, but the worm was enormous. It lunged forward, snapping up the dislodged tooth of Lava Dragon, acting as if it were chewing it. As it did, Sigma's head started regenerating, but this time, it bore the exact texture of Lava Dragon's skin. That curved tusk by the mouth, it was copied down to the finest detail. The color was still off, but the rough, scaly texture looked eerily real. Moments later, Sigma's head had fully transformed, taking on the complete likeness of Lava Dragon, even down to its menacing glare. Only then did he speak, slowly and deliberately. "We are one of the 12 gods of this world. I combine all things and create new ones. Call me the god of creation." Seeing his comrade introduce himself, the other mutant took his turn. "I dissolve all matter, bringing life to an end. Call me the god of destruction N, rank 5 superhuman as well." Sigma raised his hand, his jet-black nails gleaming, and snapped his fingers. "Our goal is simple, to wipe out every last one of you." Lava Dragon stared at the mutant in shock. A snap of the fingers to declare mass extermination? What, did this guy think he was Thanos? Looked like he was missing the fancy gemstone-covered gloves. But the mutant wasn't joking. Lava Dragon didn't notice anything strange in its immediate surroundings, but high above the sky, over the slave cities, a massive red fissure suddenly tore open. It wasn't just there. The same thing happened over the cities ruled by humans. The people of the Freedom Federation looked up in shock. Wait a minute, why does this red glow seem so familiar? A surge of energy rose around Sigma. He was retracting his jagged, toothed worm along with the fake, copied head he had formed from Lava Dragon's genetic material. Even that brief demonstration was enough to show how dangerous he was. With another snap of his fingers, the rift in the sky suddenly expanded, opening like the gaping maw of a cavern. From within, creatures poured out, one-eyed goblin-like beasts wielding clubs, thirsting for blood. Sigma and N stormed into the fourth city, causing chaos. They didn't just attack Lava Dragon, the city's master, but also summoned a horde of aberrant soldiers to join the massacre. Such a commotion could never escape the eyes of their true master, the Great Emperor. Yet, when the news reached the ancient Tree of Life, it didn't utter a word. It simply lifted its gaze toward the sky. After a long pause, the ancient Tree of Life finally asked, "My lord, I don't understand. Letting them go like that, will it really be fine?" Zeno loomed over the tree, remained silent for a moment before responding. "They are two of the gods, the god of destruction and the god of creation, together. No living being can stand against them. And yet, they always enjoy toying with their prey in the palm of their hands. This nature of theirs, well, the Overlord understood it all too well. But despite that, it never stopped them. Perhaps, deep down, it also wanted those two to wipe out some of the alien forces. Lava Dragon had no clue what those finger snaps meant. It only knew one thing. It had to eliminate them before they returned to the city. This was a battle of life and death. The fourth city was bombarded by aberrant soldiers, suffering multiple explosions. Buildings toppled one after another. They charged straight into the inner city, where only helpless civilians resided. The city master was absent, and all rescue decisions fell into the hands of the nearby Freedom Federation. The bald leader barked anxiously. The original installation would take 1 month. It's too late to hurry now. The receiving gate wasn't finished yet, and the departure gate wasn't capable of transporting large numbers either. Meanwhile, pressure mounted on the scientists. "Why are there so many locals gathering here?" Someone answered, "They've been oppressed by Dom and have now sided with us. If we don't take them with us, Dom's army will slaughter them all. Give me 5 more hours. I can get it done." 5 hours is too long. Can't you do it in 5 seconds? Just as those words were spoken, a massive, mutated white owl perched atop a rooftop. This was not some message from Hogwarts. Its piercing eyes scanned the locals below, as if selecting the juiciest one for a feast. Once it had made its choice, it let out a deafening screech, sending people into a panicked scramble. More creatures emerged from behind the rooftops, one-eyed goblins and all kinds of beasts. "Dom's army is chasing us. Run for your lives." The city plunged into complete chaos. Mutant beasts climbed onto the rooftops, scanning their surroundings before pouncing on anything in sight. Danger loomed everywhere, from the streets to the sky. Even worse, some flying aberrants wielded weapons, while the city had no means of resistance. A crazed serpent, completely unprovoked, unleashed a column of freezing energy, blasting it down into the fleeing crowd. There was nothing they could do, no resistance, no escape. Anyone caught in its path was instantly shattered into fragments of ice and flesh. Those who managed to escape the inner city were met with errant creatures lurking by the stone gates. Just one look at their fangs was enough to know that a painful death awaited. At the main gate, Dom's soldiers had already swarmed in. They were territorial creatures, dwelling in various cities, never fond of outsiders. Once given the order, they would kill without hesitation. It was a desperate situation. The humans had to act fast. People could be sacrificed, but the teleportation equipment had to be protected at all costs. They scattered, soldiers deployed to the front lines, unleashing newly developed artillery rounds upon the aberrant beasts. Bullets and shells rained down like an unrelenting storm. Explosives of all sizes, even ice bombs, were fired to stall the enemy advance. Then, a massive column of fire erupted in the distance. The explosion was so powerful that it could be seen with the naked eye from far away. Booming echoes thundered through the air, shaking the very earth beneath them. The impact was so intense that even in the outskirts, where the intruders were clashing with Lava Dragon, the sound reached them loud and clear. Sigma lifted its grotesque head, scanning the battlefield before letting out a laugh. "Looks like the reinforcements have arrived. You're done." It narrowed its eyes at its enemies, appearing calm but just as bloodthirsty as its kin. The first rule of world creation was to return everything to nothingness. "And you," Sigma sneered at the creature in front of it, "are an existence that doesn't need to be." Lava Dragon, wounded and furious, stared at the so-called god before it. It was infuriating. Now, with the deafening destruction in the city echoing through the battlefield, it only made things worse. Its face darkened. There was no time to return to the city now. Lava Dragon had to eliminate the intruders right here. Seeing its unwavering, stubborn expression, Sigma spoke again. "I really can't tell if it's your species' life force that's so powerful, or if it's just you." Finally, the dragon let out a fierce reply. "Of course, it's because I'm strong enough." Then, with a smirk, it added, "And one thing you said is wrong. We're not finished yet." Sigma didn't believe it. With both its own summoned army and Dom's remaining forces, how could they fail to destroy that city? Energy projectiles rained down from below, forcing the attacking aberrants to retreat. Those that could fly shot upward to avoid getting riddled with holes, but their instincts were sharp. One glance was enough to tell them who was operating the machines below, the real culprits. The bald leader was still frantically trying to open the wormhole gate, the only way to evacuate everyone. Then, from above, a shadow descended. It was that damn mutated owl again. Its beak snapped hungrily, as if demanding a meal. With just a flap of its wings, it sent machinery flying. The bald man stumbled backward, unable to react in time. The owl's beak was already lunging toward him, ready to bite down. And just when he thought he was about to meet his end, a thunderous fist crashed into the bird's face, sending it flying with a jaw-shattering crunch. Even though the act had just saved their lives, the scientists were frozen in fear, eyes wide with shock. "Run! Get moving!" someone shouted when a huge beast rammed through a section of the wall, chasing after the few survivors still on their feet. Then, from a rooftop across the street, something pink and stretchy shot out, like a piece of strawberry-flavored gum. It extended, wrapping around the aberrant beast's neck with uncanny precision. And with a yank, it slammed the massive creature to the ground. No matter how much the beast thrashed, it couldn't get back up. Only then did someone realize that red, stretchy thing was just the tongue of a gecko. The mist veil beast's counterattack was swift, immediately catching the aberrants off guard. They had expected them to scatter without their commander, not to put up such a fierce resistance. But elite warriors were different. The earth lizards hunted in groups of 3 or 4, ambushing stray aberrants wandering alone. The King Kong troops, on the other hand, fought in larger packs. Their defining trait, the moment they spotted an enemy, they let out deafening roars and charged in full force. The battle between the King Kongs and the aberrants grew more intense by the second. Lava Dragon, being far away from the fourth city, didn't seem to know the exact situation inside the city, yet it spoke as if it had seen everything unfold. "We're strong!" As if responding to some unseen signal, Lava Dragon no longer viewed these so-called gods as anything worth fearing, as if they had never faced an opponent beyond their level before. "Well then, this time, it's my turn." A surge of energy erupted from within, spiking so fast that Sigma and N both instinctively looked around, trying to find the source. To their shock, it was coming from the very creature they had dismissed as weak just moments ago. Its skin darkened, streaked with vibrant red-orange patterns. Molten Dragon's physique! Lava Dragon's true form, Molten Dragon, made N's eyes widen. Achieving power equal to a super being at rank 5 in an instant. Even that white-furred ape from earlier, what kind of magic were they using? The ape couldn't beat them, but Lava Dragon's strength was in a whole different league. First, it conjured a massive, searing hot lava sphere in its mouth, and it had a special gift for those arrogant fools who had barged into its territory, talking big. With a fast launch, the scorching sphere engulfed N's towering form, reducing it to little more than a silhouette amidst the flames. Lava continued to pour over them. This attack alone was already on par with the aberrant's own strongest moves. But Sigma and N weren't entirely helpless. At the last moment, they managed to erect a barrier to shield themselves. Still, as they examined the cracks running through their protective sphere, jagged lines of damage, they had to admit, so there's a third form. Not bad, Sigma muttered. We have that too. He raised a hand slightly. Lava Dragon didn't know what Sigma intended to do, but whatever it was clearly a sign of resistance. Muscles tensed, Lava Dragon let out a deafening roar in response. A surge of energy burst skyward. Sigma stood at the center of it all. The climax of the battle had begun. Sigma was solemn in an unsettling way. It always exalted itself as a god, delivering a few intimidating lines before battle to instill fear in its opponents. Gods, too, had a second form, which it called divine transformation. To illustrate, Sigma shot upwards, turning into a towering pillar of radiant golden light, exuding an overwhelming presence as the wind howled around it. Lava Dragon couldn't strike while Sigma was transforming because it couldn't even locate his true form. Beams of golden light shot out from the center, streaking past overhead. Calmly, it waited until the towering radiance condensed into a brilliant white sphere. It was like a miniature sun, surrounded by continuously amplifying bands of light. Then, Sigma's energy changed. Though it remained at rank 5, the fluctuations felt oddly familiar to Lava Dragon. Could it be because it had absorbed a tooth earlier? As the divine light faded, a gaping mouth full of sharp teeth emerged. The distinct energy was still Sigma's, but before them stood no cloaked figure, only a pot-bellied crocodile with tiny limbs filled with razor-sharp fangs jutting forward. This was what Sigma proudly called its divine physique. Though the colors varied slightly, the shape was unmistakably that of a crocodile. It had copied Lava Dragon's form and redesigned it to suit itself, a true god of creation, crafting something entirely unique. And you know what? Though it looked menacing, its actual size was only slightly larger than the tooth it had absorbed. Even Brother 4 was caught off guard, and more importantly, the energy radiating from Sigma was incredibly intense. If it could mimic like this, could it also replicate elemental powers? Sigma glared with its crocodile-like eyes, eerily resembling Lava Dragon, then charged straight at his target. Feel the power of a god. A massive explosion of blood sprayed across the battlefield. Whose blood was it? In the fourth city, fire still raged high in the streets, and the deafening sounds of battle never ceased. Shockwaves reverberated through the towering structures. Both sides were locked in a relentless struggle, with corpses of mutated beasts scattered across the upturned ground. There was no sign of civilians. Had they all perished, or had they managed to escape? The fight was already grueling, yet spatial rifts kept pouring in one-eyed creatures, each one vicious, armed, and incredibly agile in combat. The central teleportation hub had been smashed several times, but miraculously, one gateway was still operational. The scientists frantically worked to activate it while the misty mountain beasts held the enemy at bay. At last, success. The bald commander roared for everyone to retreat. He had lived in war zones all his life, but had never felt death looming this close. The moment the portal flared to life, the call went out, evacuate immediately. Hearing the signal, the battle outside intensified. One side fought to slaughter the civilians, while the other desperately held the line for them to escape. To the fleeing masses, the teleportation gate was a beacon of salvation. The roar of battle was drowned out by the pounding of thousands of feet. No one needed to be told twice. This was their one and only chance to survive. The mutants closed in rapidly, their energy bullets striking barely 100 meters behind the portal. Buildings were obliterated as if swept away by a flood. In front of the gateway, thousands still crowded together, pushing forward with all their might. Crocodile City lay in ruins, devastated by the brutal clash. The teleportation gate was the only blue glow in a sea of flames. And then, thud, a massive foot, veined with molten lines, slammed down before the scientists. The bald guy froze. The boss was back. A little late, but better late than never. Lava Dragon stood before him, its dark-scaled body covered in deep, bloody wounds. Even through its thick hide, the injuries were evident. Yet it merely bent down, extending its clawed hand toward him, revealing a frail, white-furred figure resting in its palm. The commander gasped in horror. Even a powerhouse like White Ape was in such dire straits. It looked as though it was barely clinging to life. How strong must its enemy have been? Gently, Lava Dragon set its fallen comrade down and commanded, "Take the king away first. The teleportation gate, it's ready?" He responded, "Yes, we're evacuating the local civilians here, and the other beasts are also being prepared." Lava Dragon stood tall, facing outward. It sniffed the lingering energy and sensed that many of its own were still nearby. Turning to the bald commander, declared, "No, not just the locals. We need to take our comrades with us too." The scientist leader found it strange but kept his thoughts to himself. Normally, the beasts would stay behind to fight, defending their territory until the bitter end. Why was Lava Dragon insisting that everyone leave? Then, he noticed the wounds on the boss's forehead and face. Even Lava Dragon itself was covered in deep gashes. He hesitated before speaking. With your body shape, there's no way to leave from here. Lava Dragon wasn't surprised. It had never intended to leave in the first place. I'm not going anywhere. I'll hold them off so you can all escape safely. Just as it finished speaking, a strange wave of energy surged in from behind. Its arrival was brazen, to say the least. It was none other than Sigma's knockoff, the bright green crocodile lying in a heap on the ground. Its massive mouth gaped open, but now it seemed different, like a giant ball of fur. Who knew what random bits it had copied this time? I thought you ran away, Lava Dragon scoffed. Doesn't matter where I go. Hand over that strange teleportation array. It's the purpose of our visit. Its bloodshot eyes burned with fury, as if Lava Dragon had stolen something from its home. So, this wasn't just about picking a fight with one of the 10 great beasts. These guys had another agenda. Sigma might have been small compared to Lava Dragon, but when it stood, its shadow loomed over the scientist, its glowing eyes brimming with menace. Even an ordinary human like the bald commander could feel the suffocating pressure, and the energy radiating from it. It was terrifying. Go! Without wasting a word, Lava Dragon directly gave a command. At once, it spread its wings, blocking the way so the human could scoop up White Ape and flee before things got worse. Well, a scientist knew when to run for his life, and it was a good thing he did. Sigma had gone completely berserk, its claws bursting with raw energy as it lunged forward. You're not going anywhere, it roared. Lava Dragon didn't flinch. Let's see if you even have what it takes first. With a swift motion, Lava Dragon's hand shot out, catching Sigma's outstretched claw in an iron grip. The energy spilling from its fingers instantly halted, smothered under the pressure. Its eyes flashed with an unforgiving glare. You're not getting through. Sigma's composed demeanor shattered. It shrieked with laughter, wild and deranged, just like that crazy friend N. Ha ha ha! You really think you can survive? Even as Lava Dragon's grip crushed its arm and its entire body struggled in vain, Sigma felt no fear. Right after catching Sigma, Brother 4 roared, "All beasts, evacuate immediately." Lava Dragon's command stunned the battling beasts. Its voice thundered across Crocodile City, loud and clear for all to hear. Avenge me later. The King Kong immediately fell into formation, rushing toward the heart of the city. The closer they got to the teleportation gate, the brighter the blue light became. Like the civilians before them, they didn't hesitate. There was no fighting over who went first. Whoever reached the gate ran straight through. Alongside their fellow allied beasts, they gradually disappeared into the glowing light. At that very moment, On appeared in the sky, not far from the portal. Seeing the beasts fleeing like this, how could it possibly let them go? Its mouth split open in a wicked grin. You really think you can escape? Look at me killing them all. But before it could finish laughing, a massive tail came crashing down, so fast, so precise, that it slammed straight into Un's face like karma itself, hammering it into the ground with a deafening explosion. You are not getting through, that's it. Lava Dragon said it simply. N rose from the impact, completely unharmed. It had no mouth, yet every word it uttered dripped with challenge. I figured you'd say that. Lava Dragon's gaze swept over them. It knew. Trying to return to the city had only shifted the battlefield from the borders to here. The power gap was undeniable. One creature near rank 5 against 2 full-fledged rank 5. There was nothing to debate. Still, it didn't waver. A fleeting image of Wine Deity flashed through its mind. Lava Dragon called out in silence. Old 9, if it were you, what would you do? Its gaze never faltered. To fight, protect what it cherished, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Wasn't that the way of the Misty Mountain Brothers? The portal had gone completely dark. Not a single light remained, and the entire place was dead silent. The crowd that had rushed in earlier to teleport was already gone. Even the scientists had cleared out. All the machines had shut down, leaving behind only a thin trail of smoke, a clear sign that there was no longer any way to leave the city. Lava Dragon was now covered in more blood and fresh wounds, but its wings were still spread wide. It stood firm, shielding the rest of Dom's surviving mutants and beasts. It wasn't a 1 versus 2 kind of fight. It was one against about hundreds, and each of them was downright vicious. A ground dragon roared with its mouth wide open and charged first, its heavy body thudding forward, but it had no idea what it was up against. The moment it entered Lava Dragon's range, its throat was grabbed and slammed hard into the ground. The beast gasped and tried to bite back at Lava Dragon's legs, only to be blasted point blank by a wave of sonic blade, dead on the spot. But right after that, Lava Dragon couldn't take it anymore and coughed up a mouthful of thick red blood, doubled over, clearly struggling. Just a second of weakness. That's all it took for Un to rush in full force, slamming into Lava Dragon with a devastating attack. The blow sent it staggering back, seriously wounded. The crocodile tried to close its belly back up, but floating above it was that freakish god of creation, ready and waiting. It no longer looked like any beast, just a gaping mouth with limbs and a tail. When it struck the right spot, its belly lit up. The soul-crushing devourer move was activated. This wasn't a physical attack, which only made it more dangerous. Lava Dragon narrowed its eyes, alert, but couldn't dodge in time. The technique sent needle-fine threads of spiritual force piercing through its entire body. Caught off guard, racked with pain, Lava Dragon collapsed onto the ground. Dust burst into the air, perfect opening for the two gods to jump in and tear it apart. It knew, if it didn't fight back now, it was done for. So it summoned every last drop of lava energy in its body, unleashing an intense wave of heat. The air shimmered. Molten lava surged up and formed a blazing sphere around it, shooting into the sky. The heat was so intense it could melt through any armor. The two gods had to leap away immediately, flames clinging to their bodies. They didn't suffer much damage, but An still turned to scold Sigma. "What's wrong with you? I rarely get it distracted just for you." Sigma snapped back. How was I supposed to know it had another trick up its sleeve? Lava Dragon was panting heavily, clearly exhausted. It couldn't attack much anymore, but its defense was still rock solid. The only problem was, the enemies were both strong and outnumbered it. That last move had been its trump card, saved for when both gods came at it at once. But even after taking the hit, they just leapt out unharmed, and now they were chatting like it was nothing. Lava Dragon seethed inside. I gave it everything I had, and they're still fine, still calm as ever. Pretending to be weak won't fool them. Fine then, I'll take the fight to them. Sigma noticed movement up ahead and was shocked to see it was the same enemy they'd thought was barely hanging on. Lava Dragon stood upright, wings stretched out. Every line and mark on its body lit up, all its sigils had been activated. Its form was changing. They both stared in disbelief at Brother Four, but right then, he was silently channeling all his spiritual power. His eyes lit up as he stared at them, though his thoughts drifted to something that had happened long ago. Old Nine, what were you thinking back then? Back when that panda tore himself away from Misty Mountain and went to Ynir City to save those zoo folks, even though he was way outmatched, what was going through his head? Lava Dragon hadn't been in Misty Mountain at the time. He was at his own base. He only asked about it later. Old Nine, when you faced off against Euclair, what were you thinking then? Wine Deity had said, back then, he couldn't find any way forward, or back. That battle filled him with fear of death, and deep inside, he could no longer hold on to the things he used to believe in. His answer captured the raw fear of someone staring down death, with no room to back down. But what truly stuck with Lava Dragon was what the little panda had said afterward. In that battle, I was consumed by the fear of the death. My heart could no longer bear the weight of the faith I once held. But on the other hand, there was an unrelenting sound of drums beating against my heart deep within my soul. Just having the will to win isn't enough. You must embrace the possibility of losing everything, without expecting a miracle, abandoning all hope. As the skin on Lava Dragon's feet peeled off and melted into lava the moment it hit the ground, he clung to those words from Wine Deity to numb the pain. No one knew what was going through Lava Dragon's mind. All they could see was a terrifying wave of spiritual energy pouring off his body. The wind howled, and the air smelled like danger. "Hey, what the hell's going on?" Sigma asked En, and didn't know either. They both could only stare as Lava Dragon's form fully transformed. Its skin peeled off completely, the whole body corroded by its own lava, writhing in pain and agony as it let out a long, wild roar. The lava was eating away the body from its feet up to its head, and it kept screaming. The most terrifying part was when the lava swept over its scalp and tusks. Fighting purely on animal instinct, not thinking about tomorrow, not even the next moment, it lived only for the now. What the hell? A second de-evolution? Sigma couldn't believe anyone could pull that off. Sure, it was an ancient crocodile with the de-evolution gene, but to go through a second one? Really? De-evolution was when a creature suddenly developed traits of its ancient ancestors. Lava Dragon had pulled that off twice. Evolution through de-evolution. Now that was rare. From the moment the croc joined Misty Mountain, it was marked as carrying the de-evolution gene. But until now, it had never once used it. When de-evolution was triggered, not only could it preserve its current strength, but it could also unlock special powers and forms of its ancient kind. A second de-evolution, though, that was like a legend within a legend, so rare it was nearly forgotten. For a split second, Sigma felt a chill run through him. That gene was already ultra-rare, and when it showed up, it always scared the hell out of him. Because it was a power beyond even gods, on par with the Tree of Life. It was a being of primordial origins, an existence that surpasses all. Sigma cursed to himself. He'd actually forced this beast to awaken the genes buried deep inside it. At this point, it was morphing into a full-blown lava crocodile dragon hybrid. Who knew what kind of freak move it was about to unleash? Screw it, no more holding back. Kill it with everything we've got, Sigma shouted to En, who immediately agreed. En didn't have the encyclopedic knowledge of the god of creation, but even he could sense how deadly this new form was. It was dangerous. Lava Dragon was still roaring like mad. A swarm of minions charged at it. Knowing it was alone in this fight, it had no choice but to keep battling while its body kept transforming. But don't think it just ran in and went berserk. Lava Dragon was crazy smart. It slammed one molten foot down, letting the lava drip and melt into the earth, creating a huge pit. The charging monsters, moving too fast to stop, fell straight in. The unlucky ones got scorched by falling lava, turned to ash instantly. The ones without wings were buried alive, and just as some tried to climb out, Lava Dragon flapped its wings twice, sending lava splashing everywhere. It looked like a hell god standing in the hellscape it had made. Fire on its body, fire on the ground, fire everywhere. The chunks of lava were massive, smashing the enemy beasts into bits, not a scrap of skin left behind. Only one managed to escape, one of the two gods commanding the freak army. It was En, with his signature fists, fire swirling around him. He rushed in to finish the job. Lava Dragon saw it all. A massive hand was raised and intercepted En mid-flight. The moment they touched down, it slammed the hand into the earth. A massive lava wave erupted, soaring dozens of meters high, melting buildings nearby. When Lava Dragon lifted its hand, En's body lay flat in the crater, surrounded by boiling lava. His body looked mostly intact, but completely still. "No," Sigma yelled. "But hey, everyone gets a turn, don't panic." The dragon's wing shot over, casting a shadow above Sigma just before it hit. A shockwave slammed him into a tall building, snapping it in half, sending the god of creation flying again before he finally crashed into some open land. He got up and realized how wrecked he was. His fake tusk was half broken. Lava Dragon opened its mouth, lava bubbling, ready to blast that fake-ass lizard into oblivion. But before it could, a sharper, bigger mouth clamped down on its head and held it tight. What the hell was that? None of the enemy beasts were that huge. Turns out, it wasn't unfamiliar at all. Those glowing spirit marks, that emotionless eye on the forehead, it was En, no mistaking it. That was God Physique, En's true god form. A monster with fangs, tentacles all over, more squid than anything. He and Lava Dragon clashed in raw power, neither backing down. But Lava Dragon was smarter. While being pinned, it shot lava straight into En's chest, blasting him back and forcing him to let go. As that beast crashed down, the ground shook. Sigma sprang up and fired a blazing red beam. Still the soul-crushing devourer, but now it gathered into a giant column, slamming straight into Lava Dragon's face. Since the range wasn't as close as before, the croc blocked it with a flap of its wings, and behind those wings, its eyes gleamed like blades. Lava Dragon had never once thought of backing down, and it looked like the god's attacks didn't faze it anymore. Could it actually rip those bastards apart?